Hello, book lovers, and welcome to Authors Love Bookstores from a Mighty Blaze. I'm Joe Moldover, and I'm so happy to be with you this afternoon. Authors Love Bookstores is all about partnering with amazing authors to support independent bookstores. And this week, I am especially excited to be coming to you with one of my favorite authors and one of my favorite bookstores. Erica Ferencik is the author most recently of Into the Jungle. The New York Times Book Review called Into the Jungle one woman's terrifying journey of survival in the Bolivian Amazon. There it is. Called it one of the summer's best thrillers. Erica's debut, The River at Night, was a #1 Oprah pick. Miramax has recently optioned it for film. And Girl in Ice, set to publish in the fall of 2021, is about a linguist who ventures hundreds of miles north of the Arctic Circle to try to communicate with a young girl who is thawed from the ice alive. Hello, Erica. And also, it's great to see you. Also with us is Jillian Coley from Wellesley Books. Welcome, Jillian. It's wonderful to see you.
You too, Joe.
So this event has covered bookstores all over the country. Today, I happen to be sitting about a 90-second walk from Wellesley Books.
I'm jealous.
But for viewers who are not familiar, Jillian, would you just tell us a little bit about the bookstore? First of all, you're located in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Can you tell us a little bit about the community that you serve?
Sure. And I just like to start by thanking you for including us, and thank you, Erica, because it was you selecting Wellesley Books that resulted in us being included in this conversation today. So thank you very much. Wellesley is about 15 miles west of Boston. It is largely a commuter suburb, but it is a community in and of itself. We have 3 colleges in town, including Wellesley College, which is a block from our bookstore. And we are sort of the shopping or retail or business hub for the other western suburbs around us. We have a more developed and vibrant retail area that we think is particularly charming. And so we have many of our neighboring communities, towns like Needham and Weston and Natick, and they all come to Wellesley. So we do feel like we serve all of those communities as well. They're all well-read, well-educated, towns full of avid readers, lots of families. So we have a lot of children. Big children's section at the bookstore is probably about a third of the books that we carry are for young adults and for children. But we're a general purpose store with we hope something for everybody.
It's a great store. It was founded as Wellesley Booksmith, and then you and your husband Bill took over the store 10 years ago. Tell us a little bit about the history.
Sure. So there's actually been a bookstore in our location for a very long time. There used to be a Lowrance there when we first moved to Wellesley, a small New England chain of bookstores. And when they closed, Brookline Booksmith opened a second store there. And that's where the Booksmith came from. It became Wellesley Booksmith. And then after about 10 years, Brookline decided I think they found that there were not as many efficiencies in having that second store as they had perhaps anticipated. They really are quite different communities. And so they put Wellesley up for sale. And that is that's the town that my family and I live in. And we had talked forever about someday owning a bookstore, and suddenly here was one available in our own community. And it certainly seemed worth exploring. It was 2009, 2010 by the time the sale closed. So the economy was not in great shape. We did it with some trepidation, but it has been a wonderful decision. We've never looked back.
And we actually already have a question from the online audience about this, Jillian. They want to know, I know the answer to this question, but I'll put it to you, whether the store is open at this point. Can people come by and pick up some books?
They sure can. We've been through every iteration since March of completely closed and curbside pickup and home delivery. We now are open. We suggest people make appointments, because then they are guaranteed to be able to come in as soon as they arrive. But we are certainly taking walk-in customers as well. Sometimes we just ask them to wait a few minutes if there are a couple of people checking out. We've cleared out a lot of floor space and just trying to make sure it never feels too crowded.
One of the questions that we're asking all of the booksellers we speak to is, what are people wanting to read at this kind of moment in history? In such a tumultuous time and such a difficult time for so many different people. Do you have any observations? I mean, what's selling at this point? What do people want to read? What are people asking for?
Well, certainly the Black Lives Matters movement really took the book world by storm. And so there were weeks, and they still continue really, where it was very difficult to keep in stock some of the most prominent anti-racist titles. Now we have a great supply of those and people are continuing to buy them. It was really heartening how many families were eager to get their hands on as many books to help themselves understand what was going on as possible, how willing they were to wait. Usually if you tell customers, well, we don't have it, it's not available, we've ordered it, we don't know when it's going to show up, that's kind of all they want to hear before they move on to something else. But in this case, you know, we had hundreds of folks saying, put me down for one, I'll be here the day it comes in. So that's been the most prominent. It really has been, yeah. And they want books for their children. They want books to help them talk to their children. So it's really been across the board.
That's great. Jillian, one of the great things about independent bookstores is that no two are alike. So in Boston, we're very lucky to have a number of independent bookstores, but they all have their own kind of unique character and their own personality. Can you tell our viewers, I mean, what is something unique about Wellesley Books, or what would you like people who have not had the opportunity to visit to know about your store and what makes it different?
Well, you're right that every store is different. A lot of it comes down to staff, because we are staffed by a lot of very independent characters, and that does help form the personality of the place. But I think many independent bookstores have in common that the staff loves nothing more than to talk about books to the customers. And we're just so proud of our group who can cover any subject, any interest, enthusiastically. And so, and they welcome the opportunity to do that, where it's the greatest thing about having customers back in, and what we missed the most during this period when the doors were closed. So I would just invite people to come and find the bookseller or two with whom their interests really click, and just start talking.
It is an amazing staff. I love the staff at Wellesley Books. They're all so smart. They're so knowledgeable. It's wonderful to go in and talk to anybody. Erica, I'm going to turn to you because you are the one who nominated Wellesley Books for this week. And can you tell us a little bit about, why do you love this bookstore? What is special about this bookstore for you?
So I started making a list, and it kind of went into 2 pages because my memory sucks and whatever. But it's a damn cozy store. It's the perfect. It's the perfect size. It's like not too big, not too small. Very, Goldilocks like that. Like you go like. Sometimes I go into like the library, in Boston Library, I get a little overwhelmed, or just certain bookstores, I get a little overwhelmed. And I feel like I come in there and it's like, I'm going to figure out what's going on. You've got, the heavy stress on fiction. I'm a fiction writer. I want to see that. And it's actually quite democratically arrayed. It is. And you have, tons and tons of choices, yet you do rotate your inventory, which is, super hip, super smart. You have staff, you have a lot of as you said, you have tons of your staff reading these books. I love the recommendations. You have cozy chairs in there. And some bookstores don't have the cozy chair because, I don't know, the fear is maybe you will just never buy the book. But it's like, I don't know. But it's like, give me a cozy chair. I'll buy the book. Just, because you want to like go through, what do I want to buy? and then once I get my book or whatever, I'm sucked into the middle part, which has like, I'm a candle freak. So, so you have like great little comfort things, I guess. And nothing's cheesy. Everything is like, oh my God, look at that little clock, or look at that little, it's just quality stuff. And then the kids stuff is like amazing. My kids are all grown, but I know they would have gone bananas in there. What else did I have? Okay, of course you've got all the coffee around there. You've got Pete's, you've got Starbucks. You have the intellectual waves wafting over from all the colleges. It's a super, super cozy store. And also very important, way back when in ancient history, I self-published a book called Repeaters. And, not a lot of bookstores were open to having people self-publish and do a launch. And you guys were so welcoming. You let me down there, and I sold a bunch of books, and I had a blast. But it was very kind. I mean, there's a very kind feeling in the store, very welcoming. I guess the word is welcoming. I do love that author space down there. It's like you're in this cozy cave, through this cozy space. I feel like I can say anything more than I even already do. And it's not too big, not too small. I just think it's like the perfect town bookstore. Lots of parking. I mean, great, that's super important. Yeah, I think the first time I visited was like in 2000s. It had to be way long time ago. But yeah.
It's
so
a great
anyway,
store.
love the store.
It's a great store.
I could go on.
I'm not doing my job if I also don't mention that Bill's Book Group for Guys is the best book group
There you go.
around.
There you go.
A completely unique and brilliant literary experience. So I've got to put in that plug.
Right. Thank you. Well, that came when we first bought the store, and Bill observed that he didn't think there were enough men shopping in there.
Interesting.
And in fact, nationwide, women do most shopping. Women also do most book buying.
Right.
But we kind of challenged him to come up with a way to get some more men into the fold. And so he created Bill's Book Group for Guys, and it has just gone gangbusters, as Joe knows, as one of the probably founding members. And Joe's own book has been featured amongst the guys. And so those members tend to not just show up for the meetings, but they now shop in there regularly, and they're friends, and it's just that's worked very nicely for us.
Yeah.
I want to ask you both about events, because one of the really special things about community-based independent bookstores is the event hosting. Events can be unpredictable. They can be a lot of fun. They can be hilarious. I've been to a number of them at Wellesley Books, and I also did my book launch there, which was wonderful. From either one of you, is there an event at Wellesley Books that stands out as especially memorable or funny or bizarre or in some way noteworthy?
Wow. Events in person are another thing that we're missing a lot right now. We are doing many of them virtually. And that's actually, that's great. It keeps the authors and our customers connected, and we do enjoy it, but it will be great to welcome people back in. One that was great fun last year was David Sedaris, when he came in for the paperback release of his book Calypso. He was touring. Most of the time when we get an author that big and who will draw a crowd like that, we go off site, and there are a lot of other spaces in the community that we use. But he had a provision that required us to host him in the bookstore itself. So we were, it all sounds crazy in this sort of COVID mindset that we have of social distancing, but our goal was to get as many bodies in the store as we possibly could. So we actually took that opportunity to put all the upstairs bookcases on casters and just cleared the floor. It was something we'd been wanting to do or been talking about doing anyway, so that we had more flexibility for layout up there, and has come in handy now as we try to space things out as much as we can. But we had him upstairs. We had 150 people in there, and it was an absolute blast. So,
it was a blast. My wife and I were there that night, and it was an amazing, amazing event. Audience member wants to know, Jillian, how you get involved in one of the book clubs or the book groups, and I believe you just sign up. Is that right?
Sure. I would recommend, well, our website has them, but also we have a newsletter that comes out every second Wednesday. In fact, it came out this morning, and you can find a link to it on the newsletter. If you sign up for that, then you see what our events are, including the book groups, if things need sign-ups or not. But they're very democratic. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah. That's awesome. I can definitely say the Bill's book group is extremely welcoming to new members. Another question for you about becoming a bookseller and how you knew you wanted to be a bookseller. I believe your background is actually as an attorney, if I'm not wrong. So I think we've lost Erica for a moment, but she should be back any second. This question's for you. How and why did you know you wanted to be a bookseller?
I had not been practicing law in a while, and had been thinking about what the next steps might be as my kids got older. I'd been home with them for a few years, and it was just something that Bill and I always talked about as sort of a distant possibility. Someday when we retire, we'd love to have a bookstore, and everywhere we went, we'd visit the local bookstore and compare notes and talk about what we liked and what we didn't like and what our bookstore would look like. We never did anything concrete in that direction until one day I opened the Wellesley Townsman and saw that Wellesley Booksmith was up for sale. As I said, it was 2009. The timing wasn't perfect. Bookstores were really struggling at that point. Many had closed their doors. But we explored it, and we kept coming back to the fact that this is something we talked about doing forever. And here it was in our own backyard, and the timing was right for me professionally. And so if we didn't do it now, there was never going to be a better time. And so we just jumped in.
What's the best thing about being a bookseller?
Well, it's a much broader community than we had anticipated. It's harder work because it's more complicated. It's not just sitting on the sales floor and chatting with everybody about our favorite books when they come in. We have a staff of 24 people, and so there's HR components to it, and there's inventory pieces, and what books to come in, what books to go out. Fortunately, the staff stayed on when we bought the store, and so we had great book buyers in place who had a really great sense of all of that and from whom we could learn. But it's a big community, the community of independent booksellers. It's very collaborative. You probably noticed that yourself, that the different stores with whom you deal know one another and share ideas and problem solving. And so that's been really broadening in many ways, as well as just civically feeling like it's kind of a vital part of our local community, whether it's going to select meetings to talk about dual tax rates and things that I couldn't imagine having been involved with prior to that.
Right.
Suddenly it's a much broader world now.
Some other audience bookselling questions. How did the Wellesley community support the store during the shutdown? Were you doing online sales? Did you find the community was supportive of you?
People were amazing, just amazing. We did a lot of online sales. We've always had an online sales presence, but it's been pretty small, and it just has grown and grown and grown. And so at first we were only able to have books, because we weren't allowed to go into the store, sent from the warehouses, or our supplying warehouses, directly to people's homes, which was frustrating because we often had those very books in the store, but we couldn't go in and ship them out. But over time, we were allowed to have, Bill and I could go in, and then a few more people could go in. And so we could receive new merchandise and ship from there. And the orders just came fast and furiously. People were buying gift cards. People were buying gift cards as we got close to the end of the school year for teachers, for all of the fifth graders at some of the schools. I mean, it was amazing the way they got creative and thought of ways to support us as they went about doing whatever they needed to do themselves.
Do you think that the pandemic is going to permanently change bookselling in some ways? Do you think that there are some adaptations that we're going to stick with going forward?
Yes, I hope it's not the part that we like best, and that is the personal interaction and the browsing. I think some of the virtual events, while there's nothing really like sitting in a room and talking directly with an author, it does provide access to people who may not otherwise be touring. I know from the publisher's point of view, sending authors on tour is expensive and a big investment. And so if they can get people out to in front of other customers that they might not otherwise have reached, then that's a bonus for everybody. So there is that. Yeah, I don't know. I think, the books that are now, as we get back into more of a normal book release cycle, the things that people are buying are what they've always bought at this time of year, in addition to, as I said, the anti-racist books, but the school reading lists and that was another thing that changed, were book fairs that we always do a large number of at the end of the year with our local schools. And so, of course, those disappeared, but we did convert a number of them to online book fairs, and that works really well. So maybe things like that can be done just as well virtually, and more efficiently. Now, I'm hauling all those books to schools and then back again is a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen you come in and out with the boxes of books. Last bookseller question for you. What do you find is the key to creating a sense of community like Wellesley Books has? What do you think is the key to kind of connecting with the community around you, connecting with your customers, connecting with readers, and connecting that great sense that the bookstore has when you walk in, that it's not just a store, but it's a real sort of supportive literary community?
Well, I think it does come back to the staff and to their willingness to engage with people, and to also sense that not everybody wants to chat when they come in. Some people just want to browse, having a nice selection for them. We do try to use our newsletter and our social media to stay in touch with people and strike that balance where we're not overwhelming them, but just letting them know what's going on, and to personalize things as much as possible. So the staff recommendations with people's names attached to them often, I think, give customers a sense that they know the staff. There's some they've never met. There's sometimes people will come in and say, I've never met Andy, but I love everything he recommends. And so I'm going to buy the following books, and it just it makes it more personal, I think.
You're absolutely right. It's funny. I'll sort of follow certain staff members in terms of their recommendations. I'll sort of go on a binge and read like Peter's recommendations, then Bill's recommendations,
right,
and follow those.
And that certainly happens with the book group for guys, that whatever book you guys are reading, we get dozens and dozens of other people buy it because they trust through experience that they tend to enjoy those choices.
Hello.
Oh, you're back.
You're back.
I lost power.
Oh no. We're so happy to have you back. You were back just in time for me to ask you.
I am so sorry.
Oh, no. We've just been chatting about bookselling, but you're back just in time for me to ask you the audience question about craft, which is, are you writing during COVID? And if so, how? How are you staying creative?
Okay, so I was working on Girl and Ice. I've been working on Girl. So quickly, I went to Greenland last August. Luckily, right? I was going to do the research after I wrote the first draft. Just dumb luck, which is the only luck I have. I went in August, and I just put my head down, and I was like, okay, by like mid-March or first week of March, I'll have a first draft. I won't see my friends. I won't do anything. I won't go anywhere. So that's what I did, with the plan being, okay, now I can explode out into the world and go to Wellesley Books and, you know, go to events and live. Well, we all know what happened, but the good news is that I got a first draft of Girl on Ice, right? And I was able to, during the most, well, it's still all very quite traumatic, but I mean, during the beginning when it happened, I was able to, that was when I was getting it out to beta readers. So, but now it's back, and I'm finding some days are better than others in terms of, Joe, I don't know about you, but like some days are I can't wait to get in there and leave and go into my other world. And then other days I can't quite let my you know, this world go to do that. So
Yeah.
How about you, Joe? I mean, are you able to?
Oh, it's the same for me.
It's
the same for me. There's good days and there's bad days. But there's no other author that I know who travels the way that you do and who does research the way that you do, going to live in the Bolivian Amazon and then going on a month-long trip to Greenland. So I'm glad you were able to get that in before we shut things down. We unfortunately are running low on time. So I want to thank you both for being here with me today, for participating in Authors Love Bookstores with a Mighty Blaze. To our audience, Wellesley Books in Wellesley, Mass is open again. It is also still open for online and curbside sales. Go to wellesleybooks.com. And while you are there, you can pick up copies of Erica's novels, The River at Night and Into the Jungle. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Look at that. That's
fabulous.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
Thanks, Julie.
And head over to, I believe it's ericaforencik.com.
Yeah, just my name.
Updates about the forthcoming Girl in Ice set for fall of 2021 and all of Erica's traveling adventures once she's able to travel again.
Yep.
Again, thank you so much, Erica. It is so great to see you.
I got you, Joe.
Jillian, it's great to see you. I am looking forward to being in the store. Say hello to Bill. And to our online audience, thank you for being with us.
Sorry I lost you. It's crazy.
Oh, no problem at all. Join us here next Wednesday for more of a Mighty Blazes Authors Love Bookstores. And until then, stay healthy and keep reading.
There you go.